Hello and welcome to DigFin VOX, Voices in Digital Finance. I'm your host, Jame DiBiasio. If you enjoy the program, give us a like, share, subscribe. My guest today is Neal Cross, a fintech investor, entrepreneur, and advisor. I was most interested in talking to him about digital cultural transformation from his early days as Chief Innovation Officer at DBS to what he sees now and to what extent the advent of generative AI has changed the game. Neal Cross, welcome to DigFin VOX.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
Well,
We've known each other for some time now, so it's great that we can share this time together.
Well, thanks for making that time to share with me and our audience. So for anybody who doesn't know who you are, I think you first came to prominence in the fintech world as the Chief Innovation Officer for DBS some time ago now. But since then, you have also then moved on to co-found a wealth tech business. You are on the board of an interesting lending business for the Philippines. And then finally, you are advising telecos and helping fintech associations kind of around Asia and the Middle East with their getting off the ground. So, Neal, essentially on your LinkedIn page, you call yourself a digital culture transformation person. So I'm interested in understanding from going from an environment like DBS to whether it's a telco or whether it's doing your own startups, when we're talking about that culture transformation on the back of digital, how has that changed?
That's a great question. There was, and certainly, back in 2014 when I was at DBS, there was a heavy focus that digital transformation is seen as a technology transformation. And I feel because people classify digital disruption as technology disruption, which in my mind is incorrect. Yeah, it's I firmly believe that digital disruption was caused by one simple fact, and that's that someone came in and solved your customers' problems better than you.
Mm.
And admittedly, they used technology. 100 years ago, they used engineering. 200 years ago, they used steam power. So, there's always a vehicle in terms of disruption. The latest one is obviously silicon based. But it's the same model that's happened through history is someone came in and solved your customers' problems better than you. It was cheaper, faster, better experience that came in. And so a lot of people took the lens of then there was the problem was disruption. The solution was that these new players came in and they were using like really great technology. So our defense is technology. Well, actually, from the early days, my view was very much it's about the culture. Yeah, how do we get people to reconnect back to the problems they're solving for their customers? Yeah, I love one of my heroes is Clayton Christensen.
Sure.
R.I.P. He passed away fairly recently, but his view that people, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, yes, I'm doing a payment today. Hey, of course not. That's
Well, maybe if you're on the receiving end.
yeah. Yeah, I'm receiving a payment today. That is a very good observation, and I will absolutely wake up and go through that exercise a bit excited. But we're trying to achieve things in our life, and most of our major life milestones and a lot of our day-to-day living is powered by a financial instrument. Yeah, that's a given. Yeah. But if you look at, the disconnect that companies tend to have is, if they think they are doing certain things in business, customers have a different view. For me in retail banking, for example, when I talk to retail bank CEOs and ask them what they do, they kind of laugh and say, I should know that. But I kind of, say, go on, entertain me. just this once. And they say, you've got lending, we've got credit, do this, and we do that. And yeah, I go, yeah, but your customers don't feel that. Your customers think that you power their day-to-day living by giving them a payment instrument like a card. They feel that you give them their kids' education because you give them an investment account. They feel that you help them protect the people they love and the things they love by giving insurance. So the customer perspective of what they want to achieve in their life and what a company like a bank feels they deliver gets, it's been getting ever wider. And of course, that gap then gets filled by disruptors, mainly fintechs or tech fins, that come in and just solve that customer problem better.
How do you,
And
yeah,
yeah,
when you were working in the bank side, how did you find that? Because a bank is organized around accounts, silos. It's not necessarily always, so the incentives may not actually be that I want to help the customer. So how did you kind of approach that when you were at DBS, and how successful do you think you were when you left that organization?
so that's correct. I would almost say that banks have been organized around the word no.
Mhm.
Because it certainly felt like that when I first joined DBS. And it's not just banks; it's every company. They get too tied into them and their product. Yeah. So you really need to. What we found was a great tool to start to open that up and educate them was design thinking and getting them to think about customer journeys. So rather than innovation for hundreds of years has been very much about the corporate space. I know best. I'm an executive. I know my products. I know my markets. I know what to do. I'm an expert. I've spent 30 years in the industry, and our new product should be this. I want to distribute it through this channel. I want this price. I want to market it this way with these features to these customers. And what I love about design thinking, even though it's quite an old tool, been around right a number of years, is it reverses that 180 degrees. So it says, actually, no, you should start from I'm the customer with these problems to solve, these jobs to be done from the jobs to be done framework. I've got these jobs to be done. I need these things achieved in my life. I'm going to find a provider through this channel. I want this pricing. These features appeal to me, and I'll get it from this brand. And so you reverse it and you start from the customer and you design into your organization.
I feel like we could have
Um,
this discussion when you were still at DBS, and it would have been kind of fresh and maybe a little bit different for a lot of people who are still in financial services or fintech. But that's some time ago now. Uh,
hmm.
how relevant do you think that discussion is today? Have things moved on? Are people kind of aware of this? They've embedded at least some of these concepts into institutions, and they're making, they have different set of problems today? Or do you think that this is still a relevant conversation?
But it's all about geography in terms of the maturity in design thinking and innovation across the planet. Yeah. So different countries move at different speeds. If we were having this conversation in Singapore, absolutely they and Hong Kong, they and certainly China, they would absolutely get that and know that they've been doing that for years. Now, the question is, are they doing it correctly? Is every single project going through this framework? Are the executives truly training? Is it just a certain set of projects, a certain team doing this? And are the business organized like that? For example, have you restructured your organization to have journey owners that, for example, you know, Ping An Bank are probably one of the best at this. They have a team which focuses on the home ownership journey, yeah. And at every single stage in that journey, they have a play. So when you're first trying to analyze areas to buy a property, they have a partnership there. When you go to a real estate website, they have a partnership there or they own it. Obviously, there's a loan piece, but then they have companies that can help you move home to do the DIY. Yeah. So they think about the entire journey, and only a small part of it involves the bank. The rest of it involves third parties. Yeah, they do that for health, they do that for travel, they do that for holidays, etc., etc. So there's a huge, different levels of maturity systems in that. If you've reorganized your company and if you've even reorganized your P&L and your people around that, then you don't need to hear this message.
Right.
If we look to, but the world moves at different speeds here. So we certainly see the most advanced banks in the world are in the East. Yeah. If you go to Europe, certainly the UK, US, I don't think that they have really sweated the asset of design thinking to such a level that they're getting the value from that. And it's culture which has stopped that. It's still the I'm an important executive, I know what to do, which has stopped and blocked this kind of wholesale reconstruction of your organization into one which is truly customer centric, I feel.
How
But yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
How important do you think will be next generation concepts like open banking, open API, customer consented sharing of their data? I find that in everywhere this is a difficult process, but not a lot of wins in this part of the world on that front. Is that important, or is that just a distraction?
Um, so let's unpack that. So first up, if there's any company or industry rather that you would like open data to find out what's happening, it's not banking.
Mhm.
Banking do not monetize your data. Banking protect your data. It's the big tech companies, yeah. And we've seen this play out, yeah. The Googles, the Facebook and the Snapchat and other. They're the ones that I'm concerned about what's happened to my data on like access. But obviously the geographies and the governments won't fight that battle. So then they go off to banks, which aren't doing anything kind of bad with your data. In fairness, they're not using it effectively anyway. It's locked away. It's very safe, but it's locked away in all these different product systems. It also depends per geography, depending what the regulator did. And so there's like three different regulation models. So one is that it's forced upon banks. So it's regulator driven, which is most of Europe. Yeah, they said to banks, look, all of you need to open up your systems to third parties. Yeah. And that hasn't worked in the consumer space. That has not worked because it's seen as a compliance play. If you look at the smarter regulators, I would call out MAS personally on this one. They said actually it's bank led. So you decide your partnership channel and you decide who connects with you and what APIs you want, which is I think is fair. Yeah, banks should own their channel. Yeah, those have been more successful because the bank is not treating it like a compliance exercise, it's treating it as a revenue opportunity.
Hmm.
Yeah, so they look specifically hunt partners. That's on the retail side of banking. If you look at corporate banking, it's been a huge success. The fact that companies, especially small businesses, can connect their accounting software like Zero into a bank has meant that they can massively simplify their operations. Yeah, and so it has been a huge success, I feel, in not so much top end corporate because banks jump through hoops and will wire any technology that a large corporate customer would want. SMEs have always been underloved, so SMEs now can have that transactions delivered straight into their accounting software, and in some cases do loans in their accounting software which put on the bank has been a huge change for them.
Yeah.
So it's based really on what part of the bank is operating and which geography you're in. Has seen that kind of success level, I feel.
Tell us a little bit about Peppermint Innovation. You are working with, it's a company in Australia, but it's focused on the Philippines on micro-sized businesses, providing them with banking payments, but also kind of some social media side, or networking opportunities, training. Just walk me through it a little bit.
Yeah, so Peppermint Innovation is kind of an interesting cat in terms of structure. So it's assets listed in Australia. I mean, it's a micro cap business. Yeah, it's not a huge business, but the all the operations and like 95% of the staff are in the Philippines. And it started actually as a mobile banking provider. So it built the very first mobile banking platform for Union Bank in the Philippines over 10 years ago now. Then as banks grew maturity, most banks in-house that. So Peppermint then pivoted into a mobile wallet. So they do cash in, cash out. They enable small store owners to make revenue where people bring them cash to pay their bills, recharge their phone. So typical mobile wallet play. Recently, we've really doubled down on lending, which I've been running. And so giving small value loans between, 50 and $200 and has done something really unique and interesting. Not a lot of people talk about cooperative banking and the power of co-op banks. The second largest pool of savings in the Philippines is the cooperative banking sector. They have 15 million customers.
Right.
So we signed up the largest co-op, Maspec, and we provide the technology. We actually supply the license. We have a higher grade of license, an electronic money issuing license. We supply the operations, level of customer support, and a level of innovation. And so we are digitally transforming the co-op sector. I was chatting to one of our customers and they were so happy. I said, why are you happy? I was talking about they can pay their bills, they can manage their money, they can transfer to their friends. Said, no, I don't care about any of that. I can see my balance.
Mhm.
I'm like, what? See your balance? Yeah, yeah. How do you normally see your balance? Oh, I get on a motorbike, I go for an hour to the ferry. I go on the ferry for 2 hours. I get to the other side. I go an hour on my motorbike. I go into a branch and I ask them. They tell me their balance and then I come home again. And that I was like, wow, it was me over innovating, thinking they loved all the features and the user experience. And actually, their user experience was basically a day of travel to check their balance.
Right.
So that's what we do. We partner because we're not a threat to them. We don't take over their customers. We do revenue shares. There's not a big upfront cost, and then we get access to their 3.5 million customer base, and we get them onto a digital app. Which means for some people they just want to see their balance. For others, they want to transfer their friends, pay bills, top up their phone, etc.
There's a lot of companies in the Philippines, digital banks or other fintechs, addressing different segments of the underserved there. A lot of AI credit scoring models and so on. Uh, is the pie just big enough that lots of different fintech businesses and digital banks have room to play? Or do you see a differentiation and maybe a sharpening of who's competing against whom for what?
Yeah, so historically, the banks haven't addressed the long tail and the fat tail, in fairness, in many of these countries because their cost of operations is too high.
Right.
You can't give 50, $200 loans. You can't even give people bank accounts, yeah, because your core banking costs so much. So on one side, we got the banks through digital transformation, reducing their cost structure and going after that market. At the same time, COVID really accelerated the telcos in the country that they were, there was huge uptake in QR-based payments, and then they moved into lending, the likes of Gcash and other, and doing a great job. Where no one has addressed is the cooperative banking sector. That's for a number of reasons. We're a small business. We're an upstart, if you will, but we won against Gcash, who have billions of dollars. They're worth like 4 billion US or something, because the co-op saw them as a threat. Their business model is very much they want to own the customer. Whereas our business model is we supply the tech, we supply the license, we help you transform, and we have a very visible moral compass. Yeah, we're not just in it for the revenue. We're in it because we truly want to help, and we think about the end customer, and we think about the co-op because we want the co-ops to exist. Because co-ops, being the members own the bank, we want that model to continue, but we feel that other financial institutions and fintechs would prefer if they owned the customer and there was no longer a co-op.
With PictureWealth, you're going a different direction in the sense that it's a wealth management, it's a wealth tech business, helping people with investments and access to advice. You talk about democratizing access, which is something that everybody talks about. Uh,
Hmm.
what is what does that mean in your context? And uh, what is I guess, the way you segment your target market for that business?
Yeah, so thankfully, we now have roughly about 2% of the 0.2% of the market in Australia, which means we manage about $8 billion. Australia is really oversized in terms of wealth because of the compulsory super contributions, where that your employer has to pay a certain percentage of your salary into the good thing is into a pension fund that you choose. Yeah. So the market is the third biggest in the world. The first pool of funds in the world is the veterans in the US, second Japan, and third Australia. Yeah, Australia's only got what 26 million people. So it's oversized. And what we've done is we deliberately didn't take a digital only strategy. Certainly, that world may or may not be coming. We'll see how, this is my frustration with futurists. Just because technology can do something, it doesn't mean that it will happen. Look, human operating system hasn't changed for 250,000 years. Humans don't change, fundamentally do not change at the speed of tech. And so what we've done, we've built a platform which reduces the cost of financial advice, empowers the advisors to manage more customers, and enable us to be better at compliance to make sure the customers got the right product. And so we have over 200 staff, offices all around Australia, and we're hybrid. So we have the really smart tech empowering the advisor. We have some tech that goes out to the client so they get better insight. And we package that into one offering, which means for where we are today and probably the next 5 years, it's a fit for what people want. Yeah. So they want the tech, but they also want to talk to someone. Look, wealth, I'm talking about problems to solve. So in consumer bank, as I said, the problems to solve are helping people protect the things they love, help them get their kids' education. In wealth, you've only got one job to do, and that's dealing with people's hopes and fears. Yeah. So our whole business is built around that. So people hope that when they get older, they'll have enough money for nice holidays. They worry that they can't afford to buy their grandkids nice presents. That's all you're doing. So if you start from the human lens and their hopes and fears with an advisor talking them through that, then build a portfolio where they can achieve it, then have smart technology which makes that more effective. That's our play as PictureWealth in Australia. Everything I do, I do have some kind of moral lens on it. That's just how I've been, and I think that is like my number one priority. But there is a monetization around a model around that as well. Yeah.
Does generative AI represent any kind of step change? We've had machine learning for quite some time now, a dozen years or so, and this is a
Bit longer than that.
bit longer than
Yeah, but
but in
yes, a
terms
long
of
time.
that
Yeah.
people could use, right? I mean, that was really actionable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we had the compute and the cloud that has enabled this, and then with these new ways of guessing what word comes after the next. What I think, to me, what is interesting about Gen AI is that previous versions of machine learning were top-down IT projects, whereas with Gen AI, people can just access it on their phone and get some sort of instant response, and then from that might give them ways to it can become a tool. Um, on the other hand, it's not always a very reliable tool, or you have to be a lot of safeguards. But I'm just curious about, from your perspective, is this new? how are you kind of talking to whether it's one of your own businesses or if you're advising companies on using this stuff, how you think about it and how this fits in with your career of sort of thinking about this from a cultural change point of view?
That's a lot to unpack. So we're almost up to 100 years of AI. AI is an old thing. Yeah, it's was it in 2050 it'd be 100 years old. It's only 25 years away. We could have done a lot more with machine learning, over the last like 3 decades, but it wasn't really a focus area on that. I saw an article recently where student teachers in the UK are allowed to use AI for marking coursework, which is going to be interesting because you've got the students using AI, Gen AI, to create their coursework, and then you've got teachers using Gen AI to mark the coursework. And I'm thinking, is anyone going to learn anything through this process? But well, that's like not my problem to solve. But I'll sit there and eat the popcorn and watch that one play out. Um, I don't think so. Culture change happens. It's a personal change inside you. Yeah. Culture change isn't about companies. It's about people. It's about an individual making a decision. I don't know best. I'm going to pretend I'm a learner. Yeah. I'm not going to rely on my own knowledge and experience. I'm going to look to see if there's ideas in my staff base. I'm going to look to see if there's ideas in the startup community. I'm going to reduce my ego and pretend I don't know anymore. I'm going to be more collaborative. I'm going to make decisions about data. I'm going to be customer centric, and I'm going to try and move quicker and be more agile. That's a personal culture change of leadership that they distribute more fairly down through the organization, the kind of the realm of innovation and product creation. Yeah, I always say like bank divisions have one brain and 1,000 arms and legs. And what a culture transformation does is like, no, we have 1,000 brains and 1,000 arms and legs. Yeah, every single person, including the cleaner, the person who takes out the trash, is responsible for moving the company forward. We're all connected.
Mhm.
We're thinking of customers and their problems to solve. And we organize the business around two endpoints, customers and employees. So we do customer journeys to focus on the customer, and we do employee journeys. Now, what we're starting to see, Klarna, just came out. I saw their CEO did a lovely LinkedIn post about how he'd reduced his staff from like 8,000 to 4,000 and what a celebration that was. Look, that's great. I love the fact that he prioritized shareholder return over employees. I think we're going to see some interesting things happening in the future around that. I don't think Gen AI particularly helps with the culture piece. I think, as I said, it's a personal change inside of you that you focus more on the employee or the customer. But I worry about what the future holds, especially junior roles in financial services in every single industry. And I think we need a better moral compass and think more about the employee piece and what we do with employees and how we utilize them. Look, I get it, yeah. Like most of bank operations are there because this computer didn't talk to that computer. So the computer puts something out in a workflow, someone had to type something, maybe something's on paper that goes in this, yeah. Doesn't mean those people aren't important or valuable, but we need to move them into revenue generating roles rather than ask them to find a new role in a different business because every business will go through this.
Yeah.
That we need to work out a happy place where machines and humans can coexist, where we both are happy and shareholders are happy. But I feel there's too much weight on shareholder return and just too little weight on the humanity aspect.
I view the humanity aspect as a question of what's your time horizon. So I've spoken with a lot of startups in the fintech scene about how they're using AI, and many of them are excited for the similar reason to the one you cited. They are super empowering a handful of people and they're cutting everybody else. Um, I've only known one CEO of a startup so far that told me that they're not firing anybody, but they just want to grow a lot faster by making sure that everybody's just that much more efficient. Um, so I think it depends on what's your time horizon. If you're just looking at your 3-year bonus, or you think you're going to be out of there soon, or you're just not thinking at all about that long term, then I think there's a risk that some of these businesses will find themselves missing out on how they attract and grow talent over the medium and longer term. Whereas I think those that keep some sense of we want to empower our teams, not just get rid of everybody for uh, a quick jolt to the bottom line. Maybe this is just being idealistic, but maybe they will have a more stable future.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just like I'm not particularly good at maths, but if every company cut staff due to AI, then there's no people buying product because they got no money. It's broken, and so the businesses would fail anyway.
Right.
Yeah. If there's people, because it's not, if it was just fintech and finance, then those people could find roles elsewhere. But it's not. It's every single industry. And so that people, on this is a broken strategy. It cannot work.
Right.
Yeah,
But if
it
you're,
just
but,
and you
but,
get
but an individual manager or CEO doesn't have that sense of the commons of a failing in the commons. They just say what's good for me right now, and so they execute on that logic. But you end up with a sort of a Keynesian depression of animal spirits.
yeah. We don't have any customers because no one's got money to buy anything, and then they start burning down buildings.
Yeah.
It's like, look, we've seen this before. We saw this in 1812, with the Luddite riots in the UK. Same thing happened, yeah. The first factories were formed. The value in a company was that the company took 50% of the revenue went into all the families that supplied the cotton, dyed the cotton, picked the cotton, blah, 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 all the way up the chain, yeah. And then when factories are formed and they just hired children to operate the machines, and then the owner of the factory got 90%, 10% was distributed, factories got burned down. That was only one industry. People could go elsewhere. There was new stuff happening. But we're in a world where it's every industry. 2 million truck drivers in the US are going to get a job soon. Now, they're not going to be prompt engineers. They're not going to be farmers because robotics has taken over that. So look, let's spell out. So we're in the stage at the moment we see value. It's empowering us as employees. We get more execution capability due to genAI and others. Yeah. The next phase is anyone with a keyboard uses a keyboard and mouse. 90% of those people within 10 years will be out of a job. Yeah. If we go on the current rate. So then anyone who left is basically a cheaper robot because the mechanics of robotics and having a robot that can do physical labor is still, and getting that in a commoditized form is still 10 to 15 to 20 years away. Yeah. Then that wave's going to hit. And then there's going to be very little people employed. So we've got Elon Musk saying everyone should go. When I grew up in the UK, it's called Social Security. Well, we know what happens when lots of people are on Social Security. People want more. Yeah, you don't want to live on $100 a week. I want more. I want more. Then there'll be mass social disruption, and then we'll get through to the other side where AI will be our teacher, it'll be our doctor, it will be our moral compass, it will be everything. And in fairness, when I look across the world to try and see a model of a thing which fits that category, it's God.
Hmm.
When I've got very religious friends, and they say that it's my educator, it looks after my health, it brings me the things I want, it keeps me on a moral path. And so we're going to be an interesting world in the future. But I think the difficult thing for humans moving forward is a machine can do anything better than the very best humans. I spent time with Gary Kasparov, and he was telling me around when he got beaten by Deep Blue at chess. And he said it wasn't that Deep Blue was better than me, it never made a mistake. So I think the human ego is going to suffer. There's going to be robots that run faster. There's going to be mathematician machines which are smarter than us. there'll always be something better and smarter and visible. Now, how we manage the economy and the mechanics of human society, no one's thinking about that. You've got the people who are selling AI and monetizing it, just saying UBI, UBI, and everyone's going, yay. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm just glad I'm old, but I do have hope. I don't want to be negative. I have hope that we will end up the other side exploring what it means to be human, doing more Tai Chi, having Olympics every month, learning music, poetry. Yeah, where these factories are just producing free stuff for us. Everyone gets everything for free. Yeah, we don't have to do manual labor, but humans need to strive, need to be tested, need to, grow and be something else, have careers. So we need to kind of combine those things, but it's okay. It's like 30 years away. You'll probably be dead. So all good. But, it's an interesting world we're going through at the moment. And I just wish more CEOs would upgrade their moral compass and start thinking about this future and what they can do now to make it a better place.
Well, I think we'll end it on that note. Thank you so much for your time today, Neal.
Thank you. It's been a great conversation.